Benjamin Harrison was our 23rd president. He was the grandson of William Henry Harrison, our ninth president, the only grandfather-grandson presidential duel. He received 100,000 votes less than Grover Cleveland. The reaction to this was heated, with both sides making extraordinary accusations. Harrison was born on August 20th, 1833, in North Bend, Ohio. North Bend, Ohio is just outside of Cincinnati. He was less than 7 years old when his grandfather, William Henry Harrison, was elected as president. Harrison had a normal upbringing, and he attended Farmers College there in Cincinnati. He went there for his first 2 years. He would finish at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. He would then return to Cincinnati to study law. He shortly interrupted those studies to return to Oxford and marry Caroline Scott, a lady he met while attending the university. They got married, and then they moved back to Cincinnati, where he would finish his law studies. After being admitted to the bar in 1854, they moved to Indianapolis, Indiana. He practiced law and began getting involved in Republican Party politics. When Lincoln called for more troops to help with the war, the Indiana governor asked Harrison to raise them. Harrison raised a regiment and formed the 70th Indiana, but he didn't feel right about asking others to go while he stayed at home. So he followed the 70th Indiana down to Kentucky and then onward. The governor made him an officer even though he had no experience. That was very common back then. Harrison fought in several battles, and Sherman said of Harrison that he served with foresight, discipline, and a fighting spirit. After the war, he returned to his law practice in Indiana. Harrison made speeches for several Republican candidates, but when he himself ran for governor, he lost. What it did do, however, was get him some notoriety within the party. When the Republicans took over the state legislature in 1881, Harrison was chosen as the U.S. Senator, where he served until 1887. While in the Senate, he advocated for better pensions for veterans and widowers. Harrison lost his seat in the Senate and returned to Indiana and practiced law, although he remained active in politics. In 1888, he attended the Republican National Convention. At first, Harrison wasn't even a contender, but by the eighth ballot, he had been elected. He was now the Republican nominee for President of the United States. For a vice president, they picked Levi P. Morton. He was from New York. He was a banker, he was a former minister to France, and a former U.S. congressman. Harrison received fewer popular votes, but he carried the Electoral College. The official results were Harrison received 233 electoral votes, he won 20 states, and got 47.8% of the popular vote. Cleveland got 168 electoral votes, he won 18 states, and got 48.6% of the popular vote. When in office, Harrison tried to get some reform to the spoils system, but neither side really wanted to have anything to do with that. In 1890, the Dependent and Disability Pension Act was enacted. It covered disabilities to veterans, even if it wasn't caused by their military service. It was the largest expenditure of that type at that time. When an investigation was done on it, it was found that it was riddled with corruption. There were lavish handouts that were illegally set up. There was also a debate about what to do about the tariffs that were filling the budget coffers. There was a surplus of revenue due to these tariffs. However, it also meant that people were paying extremely higher prices. Republicans wanted to spend the surplus, but the Democrats wanted to reduce tariffs in order to lower the prices for the people. There were growing concerns on both sides about the growth of power of the trust and the monopolies. So Congress got together and passed the Sherman Antitrust Act, which easily passed. He attempted to improve the voting rights for Black Americans. However, that never made it through the Senate. He set up some of our first forest reserves. A large section of it was right around Yellowstone National Park. He began to make America a legitimate naval power as well, building numerous ships. The election of 1892 would be a rematch between Cleveland and Harrison. Harrison had made enemies, however, within his own party by not using the spoils system to the satisfaction of the party. Not enough party hacks got jobs. The economy was also taking a turn for the worst. To add to this, his wife was dying of tuberculosis, and that stopped him from campaigning. The results: Grover Cleveland received 277 electoral votes. He won 23 states and got 46% of the popular vote. Harrison got 145 electoral votes, won 16 states, and won 43% of the popular vote. There was also a third party candidate, James Weaver. He was basically against the rich. He wanted to loosen the money supply and that sort of thing. He received 22 electoral votes. He won 5 states and got 8.5% of the popular vote. His wife did die right before the election in October 1892. So Harrison probably wasn't that concerned about the election results. After the presidency, he would travel around the country. He gave lectures when visiting places. In San Francisco, he gave law lectures at Stanford University. The Republicans wanted him to run again, but he refused. Harrison remarried in 1896 to Mary Dimmock, the widowed niece of his deceased wife's former secretary. Harrison's children didn't approve of this, and they refused to attend the wedding. Together they had one child. Harrison died on March 13, 1901, at the age of 67. At one point, he was worth as much as $7 million in today's money. If you enjoy these videos, please hit the like button and subscribe. Thanks for listening.